Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're diving deep into the world of the Astor family.
Oh, the Astors.
You know, you're clearly interested in these guys, and we're going to unearth those juicy historical nuggets. You know, those ones that really bring history to life.
Oh, absolutely. The Astors are fascinating, their story. It's like a historical thriller.
Yeah.
Ambition, power, shadowy dealings, we've got it all.
We've got a stack of sources here.
Oh, wow.
We're talking fur trading empires,
Right.
whispers of shady dealings, even some eyebrow-raising connections to the occult.
Really?
Yeah. So buckle up.
Wow.
You ready to dive into this rabbit hole with me?
Absolutely. I'm ready. Let's start with the patriarch, John Jacob Astor.
Okay.
Arrived in America, a German immigrant, practically penniless, barely spoke English.
Really?
Yet, in a shockingly short time, became a leading figure in the Freemasons and a titan in the fur trade.
That's quite a transformation.
It really is. It makes you wonder, how did he achieve so much so quickly?
Yeah. Was he just incredibly shrewd? I mean, our sources mention he was a butcher by trade, so it's not like he came from a long line of savvy merchants.
Right, he was definitely a shrewd businessman.
Yeah.
But our sources hint at something more than just business acumen.
Okay.
You see, during this period, Freemasonry, it was deeply ingrained in society,
Right.
offering members access to, exclusive networks and opportunities.
Yeah.
It's very likely Astor's involvement in the Freemasons provided him with those crucial connections and support that helped catapult his early success.
Okay, so it was like his first strategic power play, joining the Freemasons.
Exactly.
But we also have to talk about his political maneuvering, right?
Oh, absolutely.
This guy, he managed to forge relationships with some of the most influential figures of the time.
Powerful people.
President Jefferson, Secretary Gallatin. These weren't just casual acquaintances.
No.
These were deep strategic alliances. I mean, the guy knew how to play the game.
He did, and those connections were instrumental in his rise. Like during the trade embargo of 1807,
Okay.
most merchants were stuck in port, but not Astor.
Oh.
He received special permission from his government contacts to sail his ships.
Wow. So he had like a free pass?
Basically, it gave him a virtual monopoly.
Wow.
He amassed a fortune while his competitors were left high and dry.
Talk about a well-placed connection. That's more valuable than gold, it sounds like.
Absolutely.
Astor understood the power of influence way back then.
Yeah.
But let's move on to a more controversial aspect of his business dealings,
Okay.
the opium trade.
Ah.
Not something typically emphasized in history books, but our sources suggest Astor was involved in this shadowy world.
That's right. John Jacob Astor played a significant role in the opium trade with China. And it was a trade tightly controlled by a group known as the Committee of 300.
Committee of 300.
Now, this wasn't just any group. They were rumored to be a powerful, secretive organization with immense influence over global trade and politics.
Okay, so we're talking like a secret society pulling the strings.
Basically, they were like the puppet masters behind the scenes.
And Astor was in league with them.
That's what the sources strongly suggest.
Wow.
They paint a picture of Astor as a key player in their opium operation, which, as you can imagine, was highly lucrative,
Yeah.
but also incredibly controversial.
It's a bit unsettling, to be honest.
Yeah.
To think that his immense fortune wasn't built solely on, hard work
Of course.
and business savvy, but also on a trade that had devastating consequences for so many people.
It really challenges the traditional narrative of John Jacob Astor as a self-made man.
It does.
And it raises important questions about the true costs of his success.
Yeah, the true cost.
And it wasn't just, international trade where the Astors seemed to operate a little differently.
Okay.
Our sources detail some pretty shady practices right here on their home turf,
Okay.
particularly with their real estate holdings in New York City.
You're talking about those infamous Astor tenements.
Exactly.
Those buildings were known for having just horrendous living conditions.
Yeah. They were, imagine, cramped, poorly ventilated spaces, overflowing with tenants. Sanitation was practically non-existent.
Yeah.
Disease was rampant.
Oh, wow.
These conditions actually sparked numerous tenant uprisings.
Really?
People were at their breaking point.
I can't believe that a family as wealthy and powerful as the Astors would allow such squalor to exist,
I know, it's mind-boggling, isn't it?
let alone profit from it.
And yet they did, despite public outcry, legal challenges. The Astors seemed to operate with, total impunity.
Now,
Their wealth and influence shielding them from any real consequences.
it seems like a recurring theme with them. evading accountability.
It does, doesn't it? A pattern of dodging the consequences that most people would face.
A stark reminder that power and wealth can shield people from reality.
It's true.
But let's shift gears a bit.
Okay.
Let's talk about the Astors' move to England.
Oh, yes.
What prompted this transatlantic relocation, and how did it impact their influence?
Well, by the late 19th century, the Astors were already a dominant force in American society. But their ambitions, they extended far beyond national borders.
They were playing on a global scale at this point.
Exactly. They were global players, and their move to England, it was a strategic one.
Okay.
A way to solidify their influence within the heart of the British Empire.
So they weren't content with just being American royalty.
Apparently not.
They wanted a seat at the global table.
It seems so. They acquired titles, estates, all the trappings of British aristocracy.
Did they integrate themselves fully into British society, or did they remain on the fringes?
It's hard to say for sure. They certainly embraced the aristocratic lifestyle.
Right.
But they also maintained their ties to America.
Interesting.
Continued to exert influence over financial markets, political spheres.
So they were playing both sides.
In a way, yeah, wielding power on both sides of the Atlantic.
Fascinating, like a global game of chess.
I know, right?
But this move to England also coincided with their involvement in some, let's say, intriguing organizations.
Oh, you mean those groups shrouded in secrecy and speculation?
Exactly. The Pilgrim Society, the Round Table, these names are practically synonymous with conspiracy theories.
I know, right? Shadowy cabals controlling world events from behind the scenes.
So were these just social clubs for the wealthy and powerful?
Well, the sources suggest they were more than that. These groups provided a platform for, let's say, influencing global affairs.
Okay, so they were enacting their vision of the world through these groups.
It's possible. Whether they were actively directing world events is debatable, but their involvement speaks volumes about their ambition.
And their access to the highest levels of power.
Absolutely. They were masters at navigating those corridors of influence.
And they didn't just stop at politics and finance.
What do you mean?
They understood the power of information, of controlling the narrative.
But they did.
William Waldorf Astor, he acquired a significant stake in the British media, right?
Mm-hmm.
Owned publications like The Observer, the Pall Mall Gazette.
He did. A brilliant move, really.
By owning the newspapers, they could subtly shape public opinion, promote their agendas, even discredit their rivals.
Exactly. They were incredibly savvy.
Not just amassing wealth, but controlling the forces that shape society.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've covered shady business dealings, political maneuvering, media manipulation, but there's one more aspect of the Astor story that I find particularly intriguing.
And what's that?
Their alleged connection to the occult.
Ah, yes, the esoteric side of the Astor family.
Mysticism, seances, alternative spiritual practices. It's quite a contrast.
It is, isn't it?
This family so deeply entrenched in wealth, power, worldly affairs, yet also exploring the unseen world.
A fascinating duality.
Tell me more about this intriguing duality.
Well, it's most prominent with the Chandler branch of the family, particularly John Armstrong Chandler.
Okay.
He was known for his, shall we say, eccentric personality.
Eccentric in what way?
Well, he was deeply fascinated by what he called esoteric Buddhism.
Esoteric Buddhism.
Yes, a more mystical and experiential form of Buddhism, focusing on unlocking hidden potential, exploring altered states of consciousness.
So not your typical Wall Street tycoon then?
No, not quite. Chandler even claimed to have experienced these altered states himself.
Really?
Claimed to channel spirits, access past lives.
It's hard to imagine John Jacob Astor, the shrewd businessman, sitting around a Ouija board.
I know, it's quite a different image.
Was John Armstrong Chandler an outlier? Or did this fascination with the occult extend to other members of the family?
It's difficult to say for certain.
Right.
Some speculate that this interest in mysticism was more widespread than acknowledged.
Really?
Perhaps even a hidden current within the family's pursuit of power.
Interesting.
Think about it. If you believe you can communicate with spirits, tap into hidden knowledge.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that give you an edge in the ruthless world of business and politics?
That's a chilling thought.
It is, isn't it?
It's almost like they thought, well, hey, maybe we can influence the spiritual realm too.
It does make you wonder.
Yeah.
And speaking of intriguing, we can't forget about the Titanic connection. John Jacob Astor IV, one of the wealthiest men in the world,
Right.
goes down with the ship.
It's a story that's captivated people for, over a century?
It really has. And his decision to stay aboard, Rather than try to, secure a lifeboat, it's fueled endless speculation.
It's a curious decision, given his wealth and influence.
You'd think someone in his position would have, explored every possible escape route.
Right, right.
Some people see it as an act of selflessness, choosing to go down with the ship rather than displace women and children.
Yeah, a noble sacrifice.
Others see it as, well, acceptance of fate.
Like, he couldn't escape destiny, even with all his money and power.
Exactly. A reminder that even the wealthiest, most powerful individuals are ultimately subject to the same forces as everyone else.
It is a humbling thought, for sure.
It really is. It makes you think about the Astor legacy as a whole.
What mark did they leave on the world?
It's a mixed bag, isn't it?
Yep.
The Astor libraries, the cultural institutions, the philanthropy.
Yeah, those are tangible contributions.
They definitely understood the importance of legacy building, of leaving their mark.
But then there's the other side.
Right. The exploitation, the questionable business practices.
The relentless pursuit of power.
Often at the expense of others.
History is rarely black and white.
Never is it?
Even the most influential figures, they're a mix of good and bad.
Absolutely. And it's up to us to grapple with those complexities.
So what's the takeaway for our listener then? Should they view the Astors as villains? Master manipulators who built a fortune through questionable means?
I don't know if it's that simple.
Yeah.
They were products of their time, shaped by the social and economic forces of their era.
That's true, but we can still learn from their story, right?
Absolutely. It's a cautionary tale about the power of wealth and influence.
And the responsibility that comes with it.
Exactly.
It makes you think, how do we ensure that power is used responsibly?
That's the question, isn't it?
How do we create a world where opportunities aren't limited to the privileged few?
Important questions, and these questions resonate even more strongly today.
With the growing gap between the haves and have-nots?
Exactly. The Astors, their story provides a lens through which we can examine these issues.
It's been a fascinating deep dive. Expert speaker, thank you for guiding us through this maze of power, ambition, and intrigue.
You're very welcome. Always a pleasure to delve into these historical mysteries.
It really is fascinating stuff.
It is, and it makes you think.
It does. It makes you think, and that's what we aim for here on the deep dive, to spark curiosity and get those brain cells firing.
Exactly, because history, it's not just dates and names.
It's about understanding the forces that have shaped our world.
The good, the bad, and the downright intriguing.
Well said. And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive into the captivating and, let's be honest, sometimes unsettling world of the Astor family.
Indeed.
We'll be back soon with another historical deep dive. But until then, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and never stop digging for the truth.
Here.
This has been the deep dive.
Until next time.